Alice Taff, Rudishi Fla, Yukwat. I'm going to teach everyone for being here today. I'm going to tag along on Sinak's presentation. You know, what's lacking for Tlingit is not the curriculum, it's the time. It's the 1,000 hours and the 4,000 hours that people have the opportunity to spend that time. And we have lots of materials, a wealth of materials. But why should we learn the languages? How can we convince people that the would-be learners, as well as the school districts or people to fund the learners to learn, how can we convince them that it's important enough? Some of the convincing has been along the lines of children who speak their ancestral languages or children who speak two languages are actually smarter. And there's a lot of evidence for this. A lot of people just know this. We know this. You're better off if you speak two languages, 3 languages, 4 languages, and testing has shown that students who are bilingual, when they're fully bilingual and they speak 2 languages, they have better test scores. So what I would like us to talk about today, and mostly I would like to listen about, is this notion that using your ancestral language affects your health, your physical health. So we'll be thinking about how using your language affects your health and how not using your language affects your health. Here's an article from 2007 from Cognitive Development, brain development, understanding development, your development of understanding and using your brain and being smart. The title is Aboriginal Language Knowledge and Youth Suicide. And what they found was that, I'll highlight this here and read it to you. Youth suicide rates dropped effectively to 0 in those few communities in which at least half the band members reported a conversational knowledge of their own language. This is in British Columbia. If half the people in the community spoke their language, at least to a mid intermediate level, the youth suicide was 0. We need numbers like these to help people do their own work, to help the funders say, wait a minute, all this money that we're putting into wellness, let's do it with language. But we don't have much evidence of this kind to tell people. So, does anybody have anything that they would like to say about how using your ancestral language affects your health?
Hi, my ancestral language is Galician, as some people will hear later, but it is true that speaking with my friends when I can afford it, and with my family about sometimes the same matters that worry me daily at work. If I speak to them in our own language, I'm able to give more depth to my worries, so that is more understandable, and it usually helps people help me. Anyway.
So it helps your family who speaks your language help you when you speak to them about your troubles in your language.
Exactly.
Buenas noches. And in Galician, ¿cómo se dice thank you?
Gracias.
Gracias.
De nada.
Anyone else has a comment to make about their health and how it's affected either your own life or someone else's?
I learned something from a coworker who learned it from Joe Hodge. And Joe Hodge said, don't own your illness. So I've been thinking, I caught a cold, I caught a cold, I caught a cold. So it's me owning it. And I just now thought, the cold caught me. So I don't know if he told her that in Tlingit, but he said, don't own it.
So how do you think that might affect your cold?
I think it'll make a difference. I'm feeling better already since I've had that thought.
What was that?
I have pretty severe arthritis, and I remember talking to myself saying, my foot hurts, my foot hurts, my foot hurts. So of course it kept hurting. I was concentrating it. And then I just stopped saying it. And it made a difference in the pain level in my foot.
Can you guys be very mindful with the camera to make sure that these things people are saying that you're picking them up? Does anybody have a story that they'd like to tell about how not using your language affects your health?
When I used to come out of the language house, I'd go kind of crazy on the weekends, because on the weekends we'd spend our weekends at home speaking English. We said we felt sort of a reverse culture shock, like we actually felt sick from the switch from one to the other. I would have preferred to just stay in the language for 6 months straight, rather than have that switch.
And then when you came back into your language on Monday, did you feel sick?
No, that just felt good. Going back to the language felt good, but leaving the language made me feel sick.
And what kind of symptoms?
Confusion, weepiness, kind of like nervous breakdown kind of feelings.
So emotionally ill.
Yeah.
Which we know is all physical, it's like all in the body.
One woman said she was in a meeting and they were talking in English and she was trying to respond and she's speaking really slowly in English.
A weekend meeting.
I started learning my language when I was younger, and I took classes, and I know some words and such, but I feel that now as an adult, if I were to learn my language, I know it would bring me joy, and I know it would make me stronger emotionally and spiritually, and that's just what I think it would bring to my life and to my person. So.
And I wonder why you think that. I wonder if there's an experience you had that leads you to think that.
Yeah, I think it would just be a stronger connection to my culture. Yeah.
The thing that our elders in Teslin talk to us about is that language and culture are intertwined, that you can't talk about one without talking about the other. So while I would guess I'd be under the beginner when it comes to Tlingit language, that still doesn't stop me from learning Hakusti'i. But I'm at that point where to fully know Hakusti'i, I need to take that step to the language. But to be careful of that, just because someone speaks a language doesn't mean they understand Hakusti'i. Because I've seen people who speak the language break some big protocols. There's more to the Tlingit than just speaking Tlingit. It's living that Hakusti'i as well.
And do you have a connection to health, well-being, wellness that you?
Well, in my own life, how I see is that the more I start living Hakusti'i, the healthier my life just naturally becomes. Not that we'll ever be perfect, because I think that's one thing that within our culture, we don't strive to be perfect. We strive to iguach one, do your best. And so whatever our best is, that includes mistakes and the good things as well.
I'm also from Teslin. Kiara Yukatis, Kopiton Shah. I'm looking at your question and I'm trying to get the context of it. Because for me, does using your language affect your health? I would be more than an intermediate, I think. I understand pretty well a lot of the Tlingit language. But if somebody told a story, I would have a hard time following. I can get bits and pieces and then trying to paint it together. Does it affect my language, my health? Not using my language affects my health. I'm a residential school survivor. I was taken when I was 5. The elders in my community say they remember me talking, even if it was just Tlingit baby talk, but that's all I spoke. Didn't take long for me to lose it. To speak in public is very hard. And I talk with other residential school people. Some of them are fluent speakers, they speak. But there's others like me that understand but don't speak. And we talk about what happens when we're trying, you get the lump in your throat. Your stomach starts turning. But there's all the other emotions that come in there, and all the walls that were built up. Those walls weren't built by me, but I helped add blocks to it as I got older. The nuns did a good job on a lot of us. Even, like, I'm only 2 years away from pension. And I know that I need to learn the language so I can pass it on to my children. But how do you do that when some of us are just opening up about residential school? Some of our elders never speak about it. There's a lot of feelings and emotions that go with that. The hatred, the resentment, the anger. And then you get the feeling of being inadequate. Especially if you have someone come up and say, you didn't say that right. Or even with kinship. When you say when it's not supposed to be you got to know all of those things. And I was shot down a few times because I've called when it's not supposed to be and I was told right in a public place, in a public meeting, by an elder.
I don't speak too much anymore other than just to ask, am I saying this right? How do I say it? And I usually do say it right. Or else I'll come into work and I'll say, is this somebody's name? And I'll ask, and they would say, yes, where did you hear it? Here. And I must have heard the name when I was small, because usually the names I come up with are people that have passed on. Oh, that's so-and-so's name. So it's there. And I know that I'm getting better because listening to the people in the conference, it's like when they're talking Tlingit, it's like I'm understanding more and I'm hearing more. And somebody said in the other workshops, healing has to come first. And I believe it does. Can we heal along with the language? I think we can. Can we heal in the language? We can. Because to me, the most powerful thing when I look at my elders, I look at my auntie, and I can tell her Isikhan in my heart. Because it's a living language. And one of the best explanations I ever had for that was, one of the things I learned to say was, when you see somebody, Kedeng Sutod, that means a good morning. A lot of the elders don't like that, because what does that mean? Kedeng Sutod. That's an English term, good morning. What does that mean? You're Tlingit when you go see somebody. You ask them, Ma Siti. That comes right from the heart. Ma Siti, how are you? I'm asking about you. Anybody can talk about the weather. We know it's a good morning, but how are you? And that's the thing that we cannot lose. It's a living language, it's a feeling language. And I know I'll speak once a lump goes from there. You know, and that's what somebody said. Could be those nuns still holding them. Because when you're 5 years old and you see other kids getting beaten up because they lose their using their language, at 5 years old you learn to shut up. You learn to keep quiet. You learn not to feel, not to hear only what they're telling you. Because our way is no good. It's pagan. Our language is no good. It's pagan. Those are the things that some of us deal with.
Many, not just in your community, you know.
All
but
over.
In your region, in your country, in this country, and in all around the world. This is a big subject. I just wanted to raise it with you so that everybody would be thinking about the connection between language and health, wellness, so that we can begin to make this a good, clear connection for people who are learning, for elders. This is one of the reasons that language is so important. As to language and culture, the Hawaiians, I think it was Larry Kamakura who has written, with Hawaiian language, we are not concerned about teaching people to speak Hawaiian. That's not what it's about. What we want to do is to teach people how to be Hawaiian, Hakustiyi, our way of life, our aloha. And the way we do this is to teach language. so that people become Hawaiians by speaking Hawaiian language and getting the full knowledge of that. I thank you for sharing this afternoon. That this is a subject we can spend days together on. So this is just a little start for you. Gunos cheese pain. Dekat Johan. Olga, Nina?